dancing. It's not all about shuffling your feet. When we're talking about boat projects, there's an awful lot of moving around to get to what you have to access. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. Today I'm talking about Project Shuffle. Maybe it should be a brand new kind of a dance. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by Pantry in Paradise. As cruisers, we've all experienced LOB, or lost on board. You know you have something, like a can of mushroom soup, but you just can't find it. Enter Pantry in Paradise, your go-to app for galley management. Pantry in Paradise tracks your provisions, where they're stored, and creates your next shopping list, provision for guests, or even extra weeks. Find Pantry in Paradise in the App Store and on Google Play. As I think about galley management, actually, it ties right into this idea of Project Shuffle. Because there certainly are times on board where I know where that can, maybe of mushroom soup happens to be, but it's under a few things that have other things on top of them. So it might be a matter of I move things off of the settee to be able to move the cushion, to be able to take the lid off of the under settee storage, to be able to get at what I actually need. That's a minor example of Project Shuffle. But certainly when we're talking about life on a small space, and yeah, I think almost any boat qualifies as a small space. But life in a small space often involves trying to move things out of the way so that you can get at what you really need to. This came to mind pretty drastically, actually, bizarrely enough, when we were working on putting down new hardwood floors in our house. And as we looked at all the flooring, it was a matter of, we needed to move all the furniture out of the way to be able to rip up the old carpet, to be able to then lay down the new flooring. We spent some time drawing imaginary lines and realizing that we could cut the room kind of in half and move everything from one side to the other, get the flooring done on the new side, move everything back, and then continue on our merry way. This happens on the boat all the time. So incredibly grateful to have access to a house down by the river as we get ready to start working on the boat again. As I'm recording this, I'm watching the snow fly out from a house in northern Vermont, but we're only up here for another couple of days, and then down to Deltaville we go, where this Project Shuffle that I'm talking about, the bonus is that we don't have to put things back where we move them from. Because we're going to be living in a house while we're working on the boat, it means that we can work solidly on one project and leave everything disheveled and in a serious state of disarray. If we were living on the boat while we were doing this work, it would be a matter of wake up, immediately fill our bunk with all the stuff that was in the spaces that we actually need to work on, work all day, spend an awful lot of time cleaning up, putting the bunk back together to be able to sleep at night. Project Shuffle is something that's worth spending some time thinking about. Understanding what you need to move and what you need to have access to is a great way to organize as you are working on the boat. One example for me actually has to do with doing the painting that we've been doing on the boat. Paint in a small space, heck, paint even in a big space inside, doesn't smell particularly great. And it certainly is better to do your paint job and then walk away and work on something else while you let it dry. What we got in the habit of doing last year, and I would imagine we'll do the same thing this year, is getting everything kind of prepped and ready to go and then putting on a coat of paint right before we were ready to go back to the house for the evening. The other thing that can be super helpful with this Project Shuffle dance that I'm talking about is if there is a space that you can leave completely messed up, where you've stashed all the stuff that needs to come out of what you're working on, that's helpful. If you need to cover it up with a curtain or some kind of pretty fabric, something so that you don't have to look at it if you're living on the boat while you're doing this work, that can help too, just for mental pause. There's nothing worse in a small space than to be endlessly surrounded by clutter. And that project shuffle can mean that clutter is a part of your life for way longer than you want it to be. So if I can give you some tips, one of them is, if you're going to be doing a lot of major work on your boat, you might want to think about the feasibility, if it's possible. And I know there are times when it's not, both from a budgetary perspective, but also from an availability perspective. But if you can get off the boat and be able to leave the boat and not have to look at all that clutter while you're working on it, so much the better. Number 2, if there's a way that you can leave stuff and not have to put things back every day, that will help in terms of timing, because you don't have to spend so much time cleaning up and then setting everything back up again. And the third thing is, if you have to leave things cluttered and messed up, find a way to hide it from view so that you're not just continually reminded all the time of the ultimate mess that you're in the process of dealing with. Project Shuffle is a real thing. It is not remotely as much fun as dancing. But the end result is a more comfortable boat that fits you better and looks better for all the reasons that that entails. I'm looking forward to sharing an anchorage with you when we're not in the middle of the project shuffle and we can share the ups and downs of our lives afloat. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We truly appreciate all of our listeners. Please stay safe and healthy. We'll see you out there.